السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهدي ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. ونشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا وعظيمنا وحبيبنا محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. أوصي وأوصيكم بتقوى الله. قال تعالى: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما كان المؤمنون لينفروا كافة فلولا نفر من كل فرقة منهم طائفة ليتفقهوا في الدين ولينذروا قومهم إذا رجعوا إليهم لعلهم يحذرون. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: من يرد الله به خيرا يفقهه في الدين. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: فقيه واحد أشد على الشيطان من 1000 عابد. فقيه واحد أشد على الشيطان من 1000 عابد. أما بعد، we have many threats to our community, many risks, many dangers, many challenges to confront. These threats to our way of life, if I may pause for a minute, the adab of the Jum'ah is that we should do our best to refrain from speaking to each other. We should be mindful of the cell phones, any noise and any distraction, for the sanctity of the Jum'ah. For the khutbah is in the same realm, the same maqam of the rak'atan, the 2 rakat of Salatul Dhuhr. So it is part of the adab of the Jum'ah that we keep a certain degree of silence in the masjid. May I respectfully ask all of our jama'at to please be mindful of that, inshallah. We have multiple problems and challenges and risks and dangers to our way of life. We have dangers and threats that are physical, that exist in the physical world. Those threats to our tradition, to our way of life, to our teachings, to our peaceful way of living. Some of those are physical, and some of those are not physical, but they're spiritual. There are some that are physical, but they are inside of our community. Then there are some that are physical that are outside of our community. Some of these challenges. There are spiritual threats also that are inside, right? And there are spiritual threats that are outside as well. So we may assess these challenges and these threats at both of these levels, internal, external, and both physical and spiritual as well. An example of a physical threat, a threat to our way of life in the physical, material sense, that is a part of our community that we have to deal with, is the rise and the prevalence of so-called Islamic extremists that claim to be a part of our community and our tradition, claim to be inside of us. But in reality, they represent an old challenge that goes back to the time of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu ta'ala, from the Khawarij mentality. This is a physical, material problem inside of our community that we have to deal with. And in reality, only we as a Muslim ummah, as a Muslim community, only we are really equipped to deal with it. We also have physical challenges that are outside of our community. And an example of those threats and challenges that we have to deal with that are outside of our community, one example of that is the rise and the prevalence and the existence of the anti-Islamic wave, the Islamophobic wave, that has, in reality, is a small group of people, but a well-funded machine. Well-funded. Small group of people, they have a big voice. And this small group of people have taken the vast majority of the American public who don't know anything about the beauty of our tradition. They've taken their minds hostage. In the same way, or in a similar way, that many of the so-called extremists have taken the mind of young Muslim men and women hostage. That's a problem. That is a challenge. That is a danger. At the spiritual level, at the not material but the immaterial, ma'anawi level, we also have dangers and risks and threats to us as well. The danger and the threat inside of us, the dakhili, internal threat, as you know it well, the nafs. The nafs. One thing about the nafs, we can never defeat it. It will always be with us. It will always be there. But we can discipline it. We can restrain it. we can control it, we can tame it from its wild impulses. It's an internal, dakhili threat, ma'anawi, spiritual threat, abstract threat. An example of a threat outside of us, khariji, external to us, is shaitan. Shaitan. We cannot destroy shaitan either. As a matter of fact, we cannot control shaitan. We cannot subdue shaitan. We cannot tame shaitan. We cannot put him in check and deal with him like we can our nafs. And shaitan, like our nafs, will never go away from us. We have to die to get rid of shaitan. But there are defense mechanisms. There are ways of protecting ourselves from that external threat. So we have external threats, internal threats. We have material threats and spiritual threats and dangers. For those of us that have been asleep, it's time to wake up. We have a job to do. Because the reality is that those threats aren't just for us. Those dangers aren't just applied to us. They're relevant for our children, our babies, our grandchildren. They're the next victims to extremism or to the racist, evil sentiments, hatred of the Islamophobic rhetoric. We have to do something, but what do we do? What is the solution? Allah Ta'ala informed the Prophet ﷺ about how to raise a community and what to do. When his community ﷺ reached what's called critical mass, when it had enough men and women to establish itself, when it became strong, and these threats and threats similar to those became real problems, Allah Ta'ala taught the Prophet ﷺ how to strategize, what strategy to use. And first it's Quranic. وَمَا كَانَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ لِيَنْفُرُوا كَافَّةً. Don't let all of the believers go out at the same time to do the same thing. But instead, look at all of your community, look at your groups. You've got doctors and engineers and lawyers and productionists and kada and this and that. You've got different people with different specialties, different experiences, different talents. فَلَوْلَا نَفْرَ مِنْ كُلِّ فِرْقَةٍ. So therefore, go to each segment of the community. Go to the physicians, go to the engineers, go to the shoemakers, the productioners, the workers, those that herd goats, those that deal in the marketplace, those that are homemakers. Go to every single class, every single nafara, every single group in your community. فَالْأَوْلَى نَفْرَ مِنْ كُلِّ فِرْقَةٍ. Every single jamaat, every single group. طَائِفَةٍ. Take a group from that group. Take a small portion of each group. 3 brothers from that group, 3 sisters from here, 3 people from there, 3 shabab from here. Take a small sample of each group. See, because the community is in crisis. And so we've got to strategize. And so we need volunteers, just a few from each group. طَائِفَةٌ. Form a sub-group, a smaller group, to do what? لِيَتَفَقَّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. To get fiqh of the deen, to learn this deen, to preserve this deen. All of you can't be doctors and engineers and teachers and lawyers and this and that. We need one of each group. To become faqih, to become an alim, to learn the deen, we need 1 or 2. No more than 3 is fine. You've got 4 kids, khalas, give 1 to the service of Allah. You've got 4 kids, Ahmed, you're going to be an alim. You're going to preserve this deen. Later, you're going to be hafiz. Then you'll be an alima. Preserve this deen. Take a segment, take it aside, raise that element to be a scholar in the deen. وَلِيُنْذِرُوا قَوْمَهُمْ إِذَا رَجَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ, so that when the society and the people return and consult with them in those matters, when they رَجَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ, when they consult with them, when they return to them, when they need advice, when they need guidance, they find it. Because you, Ya Rasulullah, not going to be around forever. So you need inheritors. Somebody that's going to be a symbol of your nur in a time that is full of darkness. We need our own stars. As-sahabi kan-nujum, the Prophet ﷺ said, my ashab, they're like stars. Not in the Hollywood, materialistic, sadistic, crazy, shaitanic sense, but in the hidayah sense. And that irshad, that guidance that they find, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَحْذَرُونَ, is so that they may guard themselves from those enemies, so that the community can protect themselves from those attacks. Not just the internal attacks, but the external attacks. Not just the physical attacks, but the spiritual attacks. Spiritual, material, outside and inside. The only guardians, the only protectors that Allah Ta'ala instructed us to raise are fuqaha, people of fiqh. The Prophet ﷺ would then comment on that, and he would say, مَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ يعني خَيْرٌ. When Allah Ta'ala wants khayr, when Allah Ta'ala wants good, bihi, through a person. If Allah Ta'ala wants to use you or me for good, to do something positive, to implement lasting change, any type of khayr through a person, يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ, He gives that person, male or female, young or old, He gives that person fiqh of the deen. Understanding. Fiqh means understanding of the deen. And then he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, فَقِيهٌ وَاحِدٌ, one person who is learned in fiqh, who understands the deen, one person who learns fiqh, who's knowledgeable in fiqh, who takes a portion of their time to become learned in the prophetic teachings, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. One person, أَشَّدَّ عَلَى الشَّيْطَانِ, is harder on shaitan min alfin abid, than 1,000 ordinary worshippers. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. One person who understands fiqh, one guardian of the community, one protector, is harder on shaitan, that enemy, that disgrace, that cursed, who's trying to bring down that community. That one person, if you raise one person who's knowledgeable in fiqh, you've made life so hard for shaitan that it's harder on him than 1,000 ordinary followers who don't know fiqh trying to protect the community. Look at the investment, the value. What is it about the teachings of fiqh that is so powerful, that we have lost, that we are in the process of trying to regain? One is that in the ayah, لِيَتَفَقَّهُ, to get knowledge of fiqh. That word tafaqqah, to be a faqih, to get understanding, to be well versed in the understandings of the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ, that word tafaqqah means that person, that student that stays behind, takes time out of their schedule to develop and to learn fiqh. At the core, what they are doing is that they are learning how to perceive, they are learning how to understand the jalal of Allah Ta'ala, the majesty of Allah Ta'ala, His jalal. You know, Allah Ta'ala has two attributes, two types of attributes, jalal and jamal. Jalal are the strong, majestic attributes, like qahar, the dominant one, muntakim, the one that avenges, al-qabit, the one that takes. These are the jalal attributes that instill awe and fear of Allah Ta'ala. And because of those jalal, strong attributes that instill fear of Allah Ta'ala, respect of Allah Ta'ala, azam, greatness of Allah Ta'ala, so the person who understands and perceives and has idrak of those sifat, those jalal attributes of Allah Ta'ala, the natija, the end, the conclusion is that taqwa is born inside of them. When you get to know the jalal, then the product of that is taqwa. What comes from khawf of Allah Ta'ala is taqwa. Staying away from His muharramat and His makruhat. And even later on, the shubuhat. Staying away from prohibited matters, even discouraged matters, and eventually doubtful matters. That's His taqwa. So they learn, and through their learning of the prophetic way, they begin to perceive the jamal, the jalal, the greatness, the majesty of Allah Ta'ala. So taqwa is born. So what do they do with the other attributes of Allah? The jamal attributes, the beautiful attributes, like Ar-Raziq, Al-Ghafur, Al-Shakur, right? The one who provides, the one who forgives, the one who's merciful, the one who's grateful. Right? What about those attributes? They strive in their learning to adopt those attributes, to mirror those attributes, to perform those attributes. And so they take the jalal attributes, the majesty of Allah, and they do not adopt those, they cannot adopt those, so they learn to fear Allah Ta'ala through that lens. But then through the jamal, the beautiful attributes of Allah Ta'ala, they learn to be like that in the world. So they serve the creation of Allah by mimicking the beautiful attributes of Allah, and in their service to the creation of Allah, they are fearful of Allah Ta'ala by reminding themselves of the jalal attributes of Allah. Khawf. In another language, fear and hope. They fear Allah, hope for His reward. They fear Allah and work through His service to gain His pleasure. Khawf or raja in a different language. And while working like that, they carry with them this faqih, this scholar, this student of fiqh. They carry three things as they go along. Three things. And this is what makes them special. One, they carry with them the way of life of the Prophet ﷺ. Two, they carry with them the way of thinking of the Prophet ﷺ. Three, they carry with them the way of being, the way of being like the Prophet ﷺ. Way of life, way of thinking, way of being. That's what they pass on to others. And these enemies, these attackers, these threats, these risks that I mentioned earlier, whether they're internal or external, whether they're material or physical, all of these threats are targeting one of those three. they're either targeting the prophetic way, or they're targeting the prophetic thinking, or they're targeting the way, the prophetic being. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And what the ulama, what the faqih, the scholar in fiqh is carrying on, what they are doing, what they are embodying, what they pass on through their kalam, through their writings, through their speech, through their being, are those three ways. And those three ways, the way of thinking, like the Prophet ﷺ, the prophetic thinking, the prophetic life, or way of living, and the prophetic way of being. Those three things together are called understanding of the deen, fiqh. That's what it is. The way of thinking, the prophetic way of thinking about the world, about solving problems, about concepts, understanding our relationship in the world, understanding our place with other creatures and other beings, that way of thinking, that way of perceiving, that is called fiqh al-akbar, or al-fiqh al-akbar, the greatest fiqh, the most profound fiqh. Because it targets the mind, the thinking of the Muslims. And that thinking was passed from the Prophet ﷺ down to his ashab, down to the scholars, and it became a legacy that was passed on through the scholars. The way of thinking. And the ulama taught that, and that's why they were pillars of our community. And if we don't carry on that thinking, then what happens is we ourselves and our children become intellectually, mentally, aqli colonized. We become kidnapped. We become mental prisoners of other ideas, other people's philosophy, other ways of thinking. And so at the one level, there is a combat for the mind. We see this in pop culture. And pop culture wants our kids to think a certain way. It wants us to think a certain way. Wants us to solve our problems in a certain way. That's what media does as well. But there's a prophetic thinking, and our reaction should be, how would the Prophet think about this? In order to learn that, you have to go to a faqih. The second is, outside of fiqh al-akbar, the great fiqh, the way of thinking, is fiqh al-zahir, external fiqh, outer fiqh. And that is the ways of living. The way the Prophet ﷺ lived. The prophetic lifestyle. Not necessarily in specifics, although the specifics are important. The principles that he lived by in leading his life, ﷺ, in passing down to us how we should live, how we should exist and coexist. And that includes tahara, salat, zakat, fasting, hajj, marriage, divorce, inheritance, buying, selling, prosecuting, defending ourselves, everything. How to live in the world. And there is an attack at that level. There is, Allahu Akbar, a competition at that level. So we have competing ways in the society of how to live. Competing ways to how to exist. Competing ways of doing business. Competing ways of being a neighbor. Competing ways of selling. Competing ways of establishing schools. Competing ways of giving medicine. Competing ways of policy. Competing ways of every single aspect of life. But how would the Prophet do it, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? The answer to that is given by the faqih again. And the student of fiqh searches for that. So we have fiqh al-akbar, the great fiqh al-zahir, external fiqh, and finally, the ways of being, how the Prophet ﷺ was internally. That's called fiqh batin, inner fiqh. There's one way to live. It's another way to live ethically. It's one way to give food. It's another way to give food morally. Fiqh al-batin contains our akhlaq, ethical, ihsani principles. That's the way of being. And that gives life to to our actions. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ in conclusion said that one person learned it in fiqh, the ways of prophetic thinking, the ways of prophetic living, the ways of prophetic doing. The person who understands that turath, that legacy, that inheritance, that person is harder on shaitan than 1,000 people who are totally confused, who have no idea about the prophetic way. That's why. Because those 1,000 people will be divided. And the fastest way to conquer is to divide first. But that one person unites, that faqih unites the prophetic ways. And that is fiqh. Brothers and sisters, we are in a time where we must revive the discipline and the action of learning fiqh. That's our job. All of us cannot do it. But ta'ifatun, bit by bit, groups amongst you. How many of you want to learn fiqh? How many of you will give one child to the service of learning fiqh? We need to raise a new generation of ulama, of scholars, and teachers, defenders, guardians of this deen. We are in a crisis. We have attacks internally and externally, materially and spiritually. We cannot do everything. But we have to raise fuqaha. We have to raise a next generation of inheritors of the prophetic way of thinking, living, and being. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from the fitna that exists in the outside and the inside of our community. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our children by teaching them fiqh of the deen. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help all of us to be stronger against shaitan than 1,000 misguided, divided, confused human beings. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أوصي وأوصيكم بتقوى الله. قال تعالى: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا شر ما قضيت إنك تقضي ولا يقضى عليك إنه لا يذل من واليت ولا يعز من عاديت تباركت ربنا وتعاليت فلك الحمد على ما قضيت. نستغفرك ونتوب إليك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. عباد الله اتقوا الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. Brothers and sisters, before the salah, just 10 seconds in an effort to revive the teachings of fiqh. Alhamdulillah, we as IACC and Taqwa, we are starting a fiqh program, and we have partnered, alhamdulillah, with SMU, Southern Methodist University, to establish a degree program and a research program in Islamic studies. Those of you that are interested in such an endeavor and learning more, we'll be talking about this project tonight after Maghrib at McKinney Masjid, and here in this masjid next Jum'ah, next week after Maghrib, inshaAllah ta'ala. I'll be informing and updating the community on that project here in our masjid next Friday after Maghrib, and tonight after Maghrib at McKinney Masjid. We ask all of you to attend, inshaAllah ta'ala, and help us revive the legacy of ilm in our community. Aqim as-salah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم. استووا صفوفكم, heels on the lines, come together, no gaps please. Allahu Akbar. Subhanakallah. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. استغفر الله استغفر الله استغفر الله. اللهم صل على